The bathroom light flickered on. John squinted against the sudden glare. His reflection stared back. A man half asleep, hair uncombed. The familiar face of a normal morning. He shuffled to the sink. His movements were automatic, a sequence performed daily without thought. He reached for the chrome faucet. His hand stopped mid-air. Something was in the sink. It was near the drain. A small gray lump on the white porcelain. It was out of place. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The sink was always clean. John was meticulous about cleaning. He cleaned the bathroom every Saturday. This lump did not belong. He leaned closer. His sleepy mind struggled to categorize the object. It was not hair. It was not a piece of soap. It was formless, a gelatinous mound about the size of his thumb. Where did it come from? He thought about the plumbing, a blockage, something forced up from the pipes. Disgust prickled his skin. He imagined a clog of grease and grime from the building's old pipes. It must be that. He turned on the water. He aimed the stream at the lump. The water flowed over it. The lump did not move. It jiggled slightly under the current. It was solid. John turned off the faucet. The lump remained, a silent, strange intruder in his clean space. Curiosity fought against his disgust. He had to know what it was. He had to get it out of his sink. He hesitated. He did not want to touch it. He considered grabbing a paper towel, but that felt insufficient, cowardly almost. It was his bathroom, his sink. He would deal with it. He took a breath. He reached out a single finger. He poked the lump. It was soft. It yielded to his touch like dense jelly. It was cool and slick, not slimy, but definitely organic. The texture sent a shiver through him. This was not pipe grime. He nudged it with his finger again. The mass shifted. It seemed to peel away from the porcelain. He picked it up. It was heavier than it looked. It filled his palm. A strange, squishy weight. He brought it closer to his face. He saw that the surface was not smooth. It was composed of tiny, transparent spheres. Each sphere held a dark speck inside. It was a complex structure, not a simple lump. He felt a primal urge to drop it, to wash his hands, to scrub the sink with bleach, but he was frozen by a powerful sense of wonder. What was this thing? He squeezed it, a gentle pressure between his thumb and forefinger. The lump responded. It began to unfold. The tightly packed spheres loosened. The mass expanded in his hand. It was like a flower blooming in slow motion, a strange, alien flower. John watched, breathless. The structure became clear. It was not one thing. It was many tiny things packed together, a colony, and inside each clear bubble, the dark speck moved. It wriggled. Life. It was teeming with life in the palm of his hand. The realization hit him with physical force. He knew what this was. He had seen it in nature documentaries, frog eggs, a spawn mass, in his bathroom sink, in his apartment on the 7th floor of a city building. The idea was absurd. It was impossible. Shock made him clumsy. He nearly dropped the mass. He carefully placed it back in the basin of the sink, away from the drain. His mind raced. Frogs? Here? How? He backed away from the sink. He stared at the glistening clump. It was no longer a piece of grime. It was a nursery. He ran to the living room. He grabbed his phone from the coffee table. His hands shook as he returned to the bathroom. He took a picture, then another. He needed proof for himself that he was not dreaming. His routine was shattered. He did not shave. He did not brush his teeth. He made coffee in a daze. He sat at his kitchen table and stared at the pictures on his phone. They were real. How did a frog get into his 7th-floor apartment? He thought through the possibilities. Through an open window? His windows had screens. Through the front door? He would have noticed a frog hopping down the hallway. The drain. It had to be the drain. A frog had climbed up 7 stories of plumbing. It had found his sink. It had decided this clean, sterile porcelain bowl was a safe place to lay its eggs. The thought was both horrifying and amazing. The tenacity of it. The desperation of a small creature seeking refuge. He opened his laptop. He typed, "frog eggs in sink drain" into the search bar. The results were sparse. A few forum posts from confused homeowners. But then he found articles, scientific articles about urban wildlife. He read about amphibians. He learned they were in decline worldwide. Their habitats were disappearing. Ponds were drained for construction. Creeks were polluted. They were refugees in their own world. He read that in desperate situations, a frog will seek any source of water, any place that is dark, damp, and safe from predators. A forgotten bucket in a backyard, a clogged gutter, or a bathroom sink. John looked from his laptop screen toward his bathroom. The space was no longer just his. It had been colonized. He was a landlord to a family of frogs. His initial disgust was gone. It was replaced by something else. A sense of responsibility. He thought about the small mother frog, her impossible journey up the pipes, her act of faith, leaving her entire legacy in a stranger's sink. He could not just wash them away. He could not destroy them. John stood up. He walked back to the bathroom. He looked at the eggs with new eyes. They were not an intrusion. They were a marvel. He knew he needed to protect them. The research article said the eggs needed moisture. He took a small cup and gently poured a little water into the basin, creating a shallow pool around the mass. The porcelain would keep the temperature stable. His bathroom was a surprisingly good incubator. He had to change his life. He could not use his main bathroom sink. He started brushing his teeth in the small guest bathroom down the hall. He washed his hands in the kitchen. His perfect, predictable routine was broken, and it felt important. Days passed. John became a guardian. Each morning, the first thing he did was check the sink. He would stand over the basin. He would watch the tiny black specks inside the eggs. They were growing. They were taking shape. He could see tiny tails now. He became obsessed. He read more about the frog life cycle. He learned to identify the species by the look of the spawn. These were likely common tree frogs, small, resilient climbers, the kind of frog that might attempt to journey up a drain pipe. He worried about the mother. Did she make it back down the drain? Or was she trapped somewhere in his apartment? He searched. He looked behind the toilet, under the cabinets. In the shower, he found nothing. He hoped she was safe. He started talking to the eggs. "Just a little longer," he would whisper to the silent clump. "You are safe here." He felt foolish, but he did not stop. He was invested. Their survival felt connected to his own quiet life. If they could make it, then anything was possible. One morning, he noticed a change. The clear jelly around the eggs seemed thinner, more fragile. He leaned in close. He could see the tadpoles moving more vigorously inside their individual sacs. They were pressing against the walls of their small prisons. They were ready. Anticipation filled him. He found himself rushing home from work. He would skip his evening walk to just sit on the floor of the bathroom. He would watch. He would wait. On the fifth day, he heard it. It was not a chirp. It was a sound so soft he almost missed it. A faint popping. A clicking. He knelt by the sink. He peered into the basin. One of the eggs had ruptured. A tiny, dark tadpole wriggled free. It swam a weak, jerky circle in the shallow water. Then another egg popped, and another. It was happening. John watched for over an hour. One by one, the tadpoles emerged from the gelatinous mass. The sink was now filled with tiny, swimming lives, a swarm of black commas in the white porcelain sea. They swam. They explored the boundaries of their new world. His awe was mixed with a new sense of panic. What now? He had a sink full of tadpoles. They were alive. They would soon be hungry. He could not keep them here. This was a nursery, not a home. His research had prepared him for this. He knew what he had to do. He found a large, clean jar in his kitchen. He carefully scooped the tadpoles and the water from the sink into the jar. He made sure to get every last one. He counted more than 50. He looked up local parks on a map. He found one with a nature preserve. It had a small, protected pond, a perfect place for young frogs. He put the lid on the jar, but did not tighten it. He needed them to have air. He placed the jar carefully into a cardboard box, cushioned with towels. He carried it like a priceless treasure. The journey to the park was tense. Every bump in the road made him flinch. He drove slowly. He spoke to the jar. "Almost there. Just hold on." He parked and carried the box to the edge of the pond. The air here was fresh. It smelled of damp earth and green plants. It was a world away from his sterile apartment. He found a spot where the water was shallow and still. Reeds grew near the bank. It was good cover for them. He knelt down. He opened the jar. He gently poured the contents into the pond. The tadpoles swam out into their new home. They scattered into the murky water. For a moment, he could see them. A small, dark cloud. Then they were gone. Disappeared into the life of the pond. He stood there for a long time. He watched the surface of the water. He felt a sense of loss, a sense of pride, a sense of completion. He had done it. He had protected them. He had brought them home. John drove back to his apartment. The building felt different. The hallway felt longer. He walked into his bathroom. The sink was empty. It was clean. It was silent. He scrubbed it with soap and water. He polished the chrome faucet. He restored it to its former state. But it was not the same. The room held a memory now. The next morning, his routine returned. He stood at the sink. He shaved. He brushed his teeth. But his eyes kept looking at the drain. He half expected to see another strange gift emerge. His encounter was over. The visitors were gone. But something inside him had changed. His world felt larger. It was filled with more possibilities, more wonders. He looked out his window at the city below. He knew now that life was everywhere, in the cracks of the pavement, on the rooftops, and sometimes even up a 7-story drain pipe. He did not know what surprises waited for him, but for the first time in a long time, he was ready to find out.